Okay, let's make a start. So good afternoon again. My name is Mark Bodner from Winning Moves, and I'm pleased to be joined today by my colleagues Scott Clark and Leon McQuaid to deliver this webinar covering 15 ways to protect your business from a cyber attack. And I have to say, having sort of read through the content, I think there's some really valuable insights to be gained today. So really hope everybody enjoys it. So the aim really is very much to provide some very practical tools and techniques and as I say, insights that we hope you can take away and start using straight away within your business. And as I say, I'm sure you're going to find it very useful. Part of today is going to be interactive, so please do join in with any questions you may have or any comments. We're delighted to receive those, and we'll respond to those, pick them up as we go through. All we'd ask is just because of I'm sure we're all getting used to using these various meeting softwares. Just ask you to keep your microphones on mute if you would, just to prevent any interference. There is various ways to raise a question. You can do it through the chat facility. I also think you can raise a hand as well, and we can come to you. And you can either sort of, the sort of ability to, if you've got a microphone, you can speak to us, or it can be done through the chat facility. So whatever works for you best. And as I say, we'll come to you as quick as we can. Very briefly, this webinar is part of the ICT for Growth support, which is available through the Humber Business Growth Hub. And it also includes Digital Catalyst, a program we're delivering to provide bespoke support for businesses. So we'll share a bit more information about that later. And obviously we can, there's a bit more detail to see if that's potentially of interest to your business. So without any further ado, if I can hand through, I'm going to pass over to Scott Clark, who's going to start taking you through the main elements of the presentation. So over to you, Scott.
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everybody. As I said, Scott from ThinkCloud. Bit of information on us. We're a local IT company, so we're based in Hull, and we've been going about 17 years now. I think it's 17 years in September. 150 local clients, working with local government, Ministry of Defence, supply chain clients, manufacturing, engineering, financial, charity, and just about any other sector we've dealt with in the last sort of 17 years. We've been voted in the Britain's top 50 managed IT companies since 2016 and hoping to be in there again this year. And we're one of the region's accredited Cyber Essentials Plus providers, which is not many of us in the Humber region. And I'm also a qualified Cyber Essential ACE practitioner, and I've been for the last 3 to 4 years. Okay. So basically, cybercrime is now the largest organised crime worldwide, beating all other organised crime. So that's, if you think of every single organised crime, whether it's bank robbery, theft, anything, cybercrime beats that hands down for the amount of money it's taken away from people and small businesses. And 60% of small businesses go out of business within 6 months of a cyber attack. And there's currently, they say there's a 1 in 2 chance of a cyber attack for a small to medium sized business. Now, a cyber attack could be a malicious email. It could be you can't access your systems. It could be somebody gets hold of your data. But at the minute they're saying it's a 1 in 2 chance. So it's rather than if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And these facts come from the National Cyber Security Centre. What we're going to show you now is going to show you a little video just to give you an idea of other ways you can be hacked, and just sort of bring to light that how scary it can be out there sometimes. Okay, so hopefully you got some examples there of how easy it is to be phished and how easy it is to be hacked. If you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them at the end. So if you want to pop them into the chat, and we'll collate them at the end and go through them. Okay, so industries are constantly under attack. So what we find is these industries are the ones who are primarily targeted. So obviously financial sector, public sector, your construction, professional and scientific, and manufacturing. Now, there can be different types of attack for different industries. For instance, what we found is financial sector, they're generally trying to get credentials. Where in the construction, it's normally like a man in the middle attack. They're trying to intercept payments. But it can vary. And to be fair, all industries are under attack nowadays. It's just these tend to be more of a target at the minute. Okay, so small business challenges with cybersecurity. So small business owners don't believe it will happen to them. It's just the big guys that get targeted. I think firewall, antivirus and backups enough. Don't believe the data is important to hackers. And lastly, they believe their IT team or the IT guy's got it covered because he's always had everything covered. And that's where it can cause some problems. Cybersecurity, we say, is a team sport now, because the problem we've got at the minute is cybercrime's growing at such a rate. There isn't the people with the skills to help prevent cybercrime around. So not every business can have an IT security specialist. And we're saying that actually we need everyone to do their part, whether it's making sure your team's trained, making sure you've got the right tools in place to prevent attacks. Cyber attacks only for the big guys. There's some examples of the big guys who have all been in the news because they've been hacked. Obviously NHS a couple of years ago, Facebook, LinkedIn, Ticketmaster, Sony was a big one. And obviously a couple of years ago GDPR came into place, so everybody should know what GDPR is now. That's basically if you have any personal identifiable information, you need to make sure it's protected, because if for whatever reason there's a breach and that data gets out, then you can be fined 2% of your turnover, or alternatively, if it's special category data, so things like children's names and addresses, etc., it could be something like 4% of your turnover, which is obviously a hefty fine, what you don't want to be paying. And this is an example from a website which will tell you who's been fined recently. You can go on there's a particular website you can go on and it'll search it. GDPR makes it clear that organisations must be accountable for personal data they hold. Personal data is a real value, so organisations have a legal duty to ensure its security, just like they would do with any other asset. And here's one of the big examples. Marriott had a breach. The ICO, because of GDPR, they got fined nearly £100 million for GDPR. And the strange thing about the Marriott's one is the Marriott was actually okay. What they did is they actually bought another hotel chain, I can't remember who it was, and the security on the hotel chain they bought wasn't up to scratch. So when they bought that, that's where the breach was, and it affected the full group. Back in 2017, there was the big WannaCry virus. Again, it looked like overall it cost £4 billion in damages, and we know people locally who got affected by that virus, and the NHS was one of them as well. So why don't we hear about small business cyber attacks? It's not newsworthy. It's not great PR. Who wants to know that you've been hit by a cyber attack? Would it be on the front page of all the Daily Mail? Probably not. Extremely embarrassing. It's not something to go and talk to your friends and your peers about. And there's obviously legal ramifications with fines, etc. So it's not reported. Another example of a law firm who got hit by a ransomware attack. So basically what happened is 5 million files got encrypted, so they wasn't able to access the files and work. So what they decided to do is they thought, well, we'll pay the ransom. So they paid just over 20 grand in ransom, because the backups were corrupted, so they was unable to come back off a backup. They were down for 2 weeks, and it took 39 hours per terabyte to restore. Now, what that means is it might have only took 30 minutes to encrypt the files. It takes a lot longer to decrypt, to unencrypt them from a ransomware attack. And the problem with paying the ransom is you're not always guaranteed they're going to give you the codes. You'll pay it, you might not hear anything for a week, you might get the codes, you might not. It's not the right thing to do, really. It's making sure you've got good backups in place and the right preventative measures in place as well. Okay, so one of the worst things really for me, I think, is other than being down, some businesses, depending on what you are, you can afford to be down half a day, maybe 2 days, but it's the reputation. Here's an example of 9 articles in the news within 3 days. You just imagine if your biggest competitor got hit by a cyber attack and it leaked out loads of critical data, you'd use that to your advantage for sales. So you don't want it to be on the other foot. I like to say security comes in layers, and a good example of that is the house analogy. So this is based on the NIST cybersecurity framework, which is the framework in America. So what we say is, like I say, it's in multiple layers. So first of all, if you was protecting your house, the first measures you would have in place are you'd have doors, you'd have locks on them, you'd have a fence, and maybe have some signage saying you've got CCTV or beware of the dog, etc. If somebody's getting into the house, you want some way of protecting it. So you'd have an alarm, you might have motion sensors, you might have CCTV, you might have neighborhood watch. And then finally, you've got your response. So again, you could have your dog, insurance, police, and the chasing them out with a baseball bat. And then the way to wrap the framework up is to try and identify the risks first, and then be able to recover afterwards. We always say it's a layered approach. Okay, so down to our 15 ways. So first of all, the human firewall, because 95% of cyber attacks are caused by human error. And that's generally somebody clicking on an email, clicking on a link, downloading a file, opening a file that they shouldn't have done. It's down to education, really. So here's an example of a phishing attack. So if we look, the email looks really genuine. It's got the PayPal logo on, it's got all the fonts and everything, looks okay. If we look where the email's from, it looks like it's from PayPal because it says service@intel.paypal.com, but in brackets, if we look, that's the actual email address it's come from. You see how it's come from an outlook.com address. PayPal wouldn't send anything from an outlook.com address. It needs to match up. If it doesn't match up, there's an issue there. So that's how you can easily deter that one. Again, there's a Microsoft alert. Now again, if we look at the email address at the top, Microsoft might send from an outlook.com address. They probably won't, but it is one of their domains. The things to look out for in this is it's just really poor English. You start looking at the way things are written in the sentences below. It's just really poor English. And to be fair, if you've got your doubts, just don't do anything. You'll be warned again if there is an issue. And the easiest way to sort of determine really is, we always say, it's to look at the domain. So if we look at the differences between these 2 domain names there, there's support.flygaleaviation.com, and all underneath it looks exactly the same, apart from the L's being changed to an I. Now, looking very briefly on an email or a link, it's very difficult to see that without double checking. So it's always worth double checking over and over a link before you click on it. And again, there's a big difference between flygaleaviation.buyersrights.com and flygaleaviation.com/buyersrights. By going on to the first one, the .buyersrights.com, you're going on a buyer's rights domain, so therefore it's their website, where on the flygaleaviation.com one, that's part of the domain. So if we look on the example, it has www.example.com, that part's the domain. Anything after it's the page. if you have anything after it and any more dots or anything, that's where it's trying to spoof it. So how to spot a dodgy link or email. Always double check it, give it another look if you think it's suspicious. Check the body of the text for broken English and spelling mistakes. If you've got any links, hover the cursor over the links and again, look for them domains. If it says it's from Microsoft.com, why is it going to zyx31@microsoft.com? Are you expecting an email or attachment from that person? If you've not heard from them for 3 or 4 years, we've had in the past, and somebody sends you an invoice or a quote request and you need to open the file, sounds a bit dodgy, give them a ring. And always remember, the bank or HMRC are not going to send you an email. They'll always send you a letter or give you a call. Okay, so number 2, passwords. We always say treat your passwords like your underpants, change them regularly, never share them with anyone, and keep them off your desk. So here's an example of how to have a strong password. So you've got the word antelope, which is an animal. The second character is an N, so we've changed it to a capital N. And then we've looked at how many letters in total, so we've added an 8 to the end. Then we've looked at how many vowels are in the word, so we've added a 4 to the end of that. So then if we look at it, and then we've added a symbol to the end, which is a slash. So then if we look at it, we've done, easy to remember, antelope 84, but we've got a capital N in it, and we've got the 8 and the 4 represent the number of letters and vowels in there. Can be a little bit complex. Another way of doing it is crazy hackers can't guess my password, 1510. So all we've done is grab the first letter of each word and put the number on. Personally, to keep it easy, I recommend using a password manager. Anything like a Keeper or LastPass, they're the best ones. You can get them for free for personal use on some of them, or you can get like a 60-day trial. And you want a separate password for every single web page or application you go on. And that's why you want an application like that, because all you'd need to do is click on the link. It'll be starred out. You click near your password and automatically put the password in and remember it for you. And that'll be a separate password for every single application. So if you lose one password, somebody hacks one thing, they're not going to get in everything else. Where if you've got the same password, then they'll just try it on every single domain. Okay, email security. We always recommend using a reputable vendor, someone like Microsoft or Google. Long gone are the days of using your web designer for email, and that seems to be a common way, sort of maybe 10 years ago, but they don't look after email. It's not secure the way to do it. It's very old technology. Invest in an email security stroke spam prevention. There is a little bit built into them services, but they also have premium options. If your emails, is a little tip for you, if your emails are going into people's spam folders, if you're constantly sending an email that goes into someone's spam folder, there's something called an SPF record. If you get your IT guys to check that, if you put that record in, it shouldn't go into spam anymore. And stop your emails getting hijacked. If you get your IT guys to check you've got a DKIM or a DMARC record, that's just an extra layer of security. And what that does, that stops people spoofing the email. So for instance, with us, nobody can pretend they're ThinkCloud because it'll get picked up by people's spam because it's not showing it's from our email service. Okay, number 4, multi-factor authentication. So what this is you've got your email address, you've got your password, you can log in, it then pops up on your phone, and you have to click a button to have access, or alternatively, and even better, is you might get a little USB key you put into your machine and you click the button when it tells you to do it and it enters a unique code. This is the best way of protecting access to any cloud software and your emails. And here's a little quote from me. If you're going to do one thing after today's meeting, make sure you got multi-factor authentication on your email. So that's why, again, you should use Microsoft or Google, because this is built in for free. And it just stops people. So if somebody in America decided to got your email address and password, as soon as they try and log in, it'll flag up on your phone saying, do you want to give access? You can just click no straight away and flag it up and they'll be blocked. Okay, dark web monitoring. So basically the dark web, we've got there, everything we do on the web at the minute, they say is 4% of what's on the web. So although we think the internet's vast and we can find all kinds of information on it, the dark web is the other 96% underneath, a bit like an iceberg on the picture. So again, these people's records sold on there. It's sort of like a black market, if you like. And what they say as well is that, as well as your stolen credentials on there, sometimes you don't know information's been leaked on the dark web, and things can hide on your system for a total of 197 days. That's the average time a virus can be picked up on your network. So you might be sat there thinking, actually, we're all right, but you might have already been hacked. There's an example of a dark web report. So basically what it does is you've got different vendors who scan the dark web, put in your domain, and it'll give you an example of what your password is, and it'll also say where it's come from. The bit at the end, which says PII hit, that's if it's got personal identifiable information. So again, it might have your address, it might have your national insurance number, could have bank account details. So it also flags that up as well sometimes. Updates. So these are the bane of our life being in IT support, but it's really, really important. Updates prevent weaknesses in software or hardware, and they need to be applied as soon as possible, really. And the National Cybercrime Security Centre recommend, and part of Cyber Essentials is updates should be applied, critical security updates should be applied within 14 days of release. And that goes for your laptops, Macs, servers, phones and tablets. So that's why it's always good. If you have an IT department, or if you have an IT company who looks after you, they normally have a platform where they can automate that for you. So you don't have to think about anything. They'll just say, right, every Tuesday night, it's going to do update, just leave your machines on. And that's the best preventative measure. And don't forget to give your devices a weekly reboot as well once they have patched, because sometimes they need a reboot to apply. There's nothing worse than, we get it quite often, where if somebody's got a server, the IT guy's been patching it, the server needs to be rebooted for whatever reason, and it takes half an hour to be booted back up, or your Windows 10 device takes another 20 minutes to boot back up because you've not applied the patches and you're ready to go in a meeting. You can't do anything, because if you stop it, you're going to break the device. So a little tip for you there. Okay, number 7, endpoint protection. So traditional antivirus is no longer enough. Traditional antivirus, the way that works is somebody gets a virus, the antivirus companies find out what that virus is and basically write the software so it looks for the same pattern again and distributes it to all the other PCs. So it looks to say, actually, this is the infection. If you find it, it's named